Alright, let's sleep. Pull the blankets up to your chin. Fluff your pillow. Turn off your phone and let the darkness settle around you like a soft, warm cloak. Tonight, we're going to travel back in time to a world of gold and sand, of towering temples and mighty rivers, of a civilization that lasted for thousands of years and still captivates our imagination. We're going to meet a woman who defied the gods, or rather, who claimed to be one of them, and who became one of the most extraordinary rulers in all of human history. Her name was Hatshepsut. But before we get to the throne and the crown, the temples and the trade routes, we need to understand the world into which she was born, a world of pharaohs and priests, of pyramids and palaces, of a river that gave life and a desert that took it away. Part 1, The Daughter of the King. The year is approximately 1507 BCE. The place is Thebes, the great capital of Egypt during the New Kingdom, a city of temples and tombs, of bustling markets and quiet courtyards, of priests who spoke to the gods and scribes who wrote down everything. The Nile flows through the heart of the city, its waters dark and fertile, carrying the lifeblood of the kingdom. In the royal palace, a baby girl is born. She is given the name Hatshepsut, which means, foremost of noble women. She is the daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I and his great royal wife, Queen Ahmose. Her father is a warrior king, a man who has expanded Egypt's borders further than any pharaoh before him. He has led campaigns into Nubia, to the south, and into Syria, to the north. He has brought back gold, ivory, and slaves. He is the most powerful man in the known world, and Hatshepsut is his favorite child. But Hatshepsut is not her father's only child. He has other children, including sons from lesser wives. And in Egypt, it is the sons who inherit the throne. A daughter may be beloved, she may be powerful, she may be brilliant, but she cannot be pharaoh. Hatshepsut grows up in the palace, surrounded by luxury and privilege. She is taught to read and write, to recite poetry, to perform the rituals of the temple, and to understand the complex politics of the court. She is also taught that her role is to support the king, not to be one. When she is about 12 years old, Hatshepsut is married to her half-brother, Thutmose II. It is a political marriage, as so many royal marriages are. Thutmose II is the son of her father and a lesser wife named Mutnofret. He is not the strongest or the most charismatic of men, but he is the heir, and Hatshepsut is his queen. They have one daughter together, a girl named Neferu. But they do not have a son. And in a dynasty that depends on male succession, that is a problem. Thutmose II rules for only a few years. He is sickly, perhaps suffering from a disease that has weakened him since childhood. When he dies, around 1479 BCE, the throne passes to his infant son, Thutmose III. The boy is the son of Thutmose II and a lesser harem queen named Isis. He is too young to rule. He needs a regent. Hatshepsut steps forward. Part 2, The Regent. For the first few years after her husband's death, Hatshepsut is an entirely conventional regent. She rules on behalf of her young stepson, managing the affairs of state, overseeing the administration, and ensuring that the kingdom remains stable. She is the power behind the throne, but she does not sit on it. But Hatshepsut is not content to be a temporary placeholder. She has grown up in the palace. She has seen how power works. She knows that a regent can be cast aside as soon as the king comes of age. She knows that her stepson's advisors will one day push her aside, and she will be forgotten. She decides to take matters into her own hands. By the end of Thutmose III's 7th year as king, Hatshepsut has herself crowned as pharaoh. She adopts a full royal titulary, the formal names and titles that every Egyptian king takes upon ascending the throne. She takes the throne name Motker, which means, the spirit of harmony and truth. She declares herself the senior co-ruler of Egypt, with Thutmose III as her junior partner. It is an unprecedented move. No woman has ever taken the full power of the pharaoh in this way. There have been female rulers before, a handful of queens who ruled in their own right, but none of them have ever adopted the full titles and regalia of a king. Hatshepsut is breaking with a tradition that stretches back more than 1,000 years. She knows that she will face opposition. The Egyptian elite, the priests, the nobles, the officials, are conservative. They believe that the king must be a man, that the role of pharaoh is masculine, and that a woman on the throne is an affront to the cosmic order. Hatshepsut needs to legitimize her rule, and she needs to do it quickly. Part 3, The Divine Birth. Hatshepsut's first move is to claim divine birth. She orders a series of reliefs to be carved on the walls of her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, depicting the story of her conception. According to these reliefs, the god Thutmose III, the most powerful deity in Egypt, visited her mother, Queen Thutmose, in the night. He appeared to her in the form of her husband, Thutmose I, and he impregnated her with the future pharaoh. The reliefs show Thutmose III taking the form of Thutmose I, approaching Queen Thutmose, and placing the ankh, the symbol of life, to her nose. They show the god Khnum, the creator god, molding Hatshepsut and her Ka, her spiritual double, on a potter's wheel. They show the goddess Hathor, the divine mother, nursing the infant Hatshepsut. The message is clear: Hatshepsut is not just a woman who has seized power. She is the daughter of a god. Her rule is ordained by the divine. This is a masterful piece of propaganda. In a world where the pharaoh was considered a living god, Hatshepsut is claiming that she is more divine than any other pharaoh. She is not merely the daughter of a king, she is the daughter of the king of the gods. No one can argue with that. Part 4, The Transformation. But Hatshepsut knows that divine birth alone is not enough. She also needs to change the way she is perceived. In a society that expects the pharaoh to be male, she must present herself as a man. In her early portraits, Hatshepsut is depicted as a typical queen, a woman in feminine garments, with a woman's body. But as she consolidates her power, she begins to change her image. She orders that she be depicted with a male body, wearing the traditional regalia of a king, the kilt, the crown or headcloth, and the false beard. In statues and reliefs, she appears as a man in the prime of life, with broad shoulders and a muscular build. This does not mean that she was trying to fool anyone into thinking that she was a man. Egyptian art was not meant to be realistic, it was meant to convey an ideal. The pharaoh was the embodiment of the god Horus, and Horus was male. By depicting herself as male, Hatshepsut was simply conforming to the artistic conventions of her time. She was showing herself not as she was, but as she should be. But the transformation was not complete. In some statues, Hatshepsut is depicted with a female body but wearing male regalia. In others, she is shown as a sphinx, with a lion's mane and a pharaoh's beard. And in all of them, her inscriptions include her personal name, Hatshepsut, which means, foremost of noble women, a distinctly feminine name. The message was clear: Hatshepsut was a woman, but she was also a king. She had transcended the limitations of her gender. She was something new, something unprecedented. Part 5, The Reign of Peace. Hatshepsut's reign was one of the most peaceful and prosperous in Egyptian history. Unlike many of her predecessors, she was not a warrior queen. She did not lead armies into battle or conquer new territories. Instead, she focused on trade, building, and the economic prosperity of her kingdom. Her most famous achievement was the expedition to the land of Punt, a fabled kingdom along the southern shore of the Red Sea, in what is now Somalia or Ethiopia. The route to Punt had been lost for centuries. No Egyptian had been there for more than 500 years. But Hatshepsut was determined to reopen the trade route. She built a Red Sea fleet to facilitate the journey. In about the 9th year of her reign, she dispatched 5 ships, each about 21 meters long, on the expedition to Punt. The ships returned laden with treasures, gold, ivory, ebony, live myrrh trees, frankincense, and a menagerie of exotic animals, including apes, panthers, and giraffes. The myrrh trees were planted in the gardens of her temple, and the frankincense was used as kohl eyeliner. The expedition was a triumph. It brought immense wealth to Egypt, and it enhanced Hatshepsut's reputation as a capable and resourceful ruler. The reliefs depicting the expedition on the walls of her mortuary temple are among the most detailed and vivid records of an ancient Egyptian voyage. But trade was not Hatshepsut's only achievement. She was also one of the most prolific builders in Egyptian history. She commissioned hundreds of construction projects throughout Upper and Lower Egypt. She restored temples that had fallen into disrepair, she built new shrines and chapels, and she erected magnificent obelisks at Karnak, the great temple complex of Ammonius Re. Her greatest building project was her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, in western Thebes. Known as Gezer Jezu, which means Holy of Holies, the temple is one of the most beautiful and innovative structures in the ancient world. It is a terrace temple, built into the cliffs of the Theban hills, with 3 levels connected by ramps. The temple is dedicated to the cult of Ammonius, as well as Hathor and Anubis, and it also includes chapels for Hatshepsut herself and her father, Thutmose II. The temple was not just a place of worship, it was a statement of power. It was a monument to Hatshepsut's achievements, a reminder that she was a pharaoh of equal standing to any man who had come before her. Part 6, The Court and the Kingmaker. Hatshepsut could not have achieved all of this alone. She relied on a circle of loyal officials, many of whom she had handpicked for their talent and their loyalty. The most prominent of these was Senenmut, the overseer of all royal works and the tutor to her daughter, Neferu. Senenmut was a man of humble origins who had risen through the ranks to become one of the most powerful figures in Egypt. He was the architect of Hatshepsut's mortuary temple. He was also her closest advisor, her confidant, and possibly her lover. Senenmut's tomb is one of the most elaborate in Egypt. It contains some of the earliest known astronomical depictions, including a map of the heavens that shows the constellations as they were seen from Egypt. It also contains a shrine to the god Ammonius, and it is decorated with scenes of Hatshepsut and her daughter. But Senenmut was not the only member of Hatshepsut's inner circle. There were other officials, other priests, other nobles who supported her rule. They benefited from her patronage, and they owed their positions to her favor. They had a vested interest in her success. Part 7, The Shadow of the Stepson. Throughout Hatshepsut's reign, Thutmose III remained her junior co-ruler. He grew up in the shadow of his stepmother, watching her wield the power that he believed was rightfully his. He was trained for kingship, but he was not allowed to rule. For more than 20 years, Thutmose III served as Hatshepsut's junior partner. He was given military commands, he led campaigns into Nubia and Syria, and he was treated with respect. But he was never the senior king. He was always second. Historians have debated whether Thutmose III resented Hatshepsut's usurpation of his throne. Some have suggested that he was content to bide his time, waiting for her to die so that he could rule alone. Others have suggested that he was grateful to her for preserving the throne for him, for protecting Egypt, and for ensuring a smooth transition of power. What is certain is that when Hatshepsut died, Thutmose III became the sole ruler of Egypt. He would go on to become one of the greatest warrior pharaohs in Egyptian history, earning the title, the Napoleon of ancient Egypt. He would expand Egypt's borders further than any pharaoh before him, conquering territories in Syria, Canaan, and Nubia. Part 8, The Erasure. But Thutmose III did something else after Hatshepsut's death. He ordered her name and image to be chiseled out of her monuments. He had her statues smashed, her reliefs defaced, and her cartouches, the oval rings that enclosed her name, erased from the historical record. For centuries, Egyptologists were puzzled by this. Why would Thutmose III, who owed so much to Hatshepsut, have tried to erase her from history? The answer is complicated. Some scholars believe that Thutmose III was motivated by a desire to legitimize his own rule. He wanted to present himself as the direct successor of his father, Thutmose II, and he wanted to eliminate any suggestion that a woman had ever sat on the throne. Others believe that he was simply following a tradition. In ancient Egypt, it was common for a pharaoh to destroy the monuments of his predecessors to make room for his own. Whatever his motivation, Thutmose III's campaign of erasure was remarkably thorough. For more than 3,000 years, Hatshepsut's name was almost entirely forgotten. She was not mentioned in the king lists that recorded the names of Egypt's rulers. Her statues were broken, her temples were neglected, and her achievements were attributed to other pharaohs. It was not until the 19th century that archaeologists began to piece together the story of Hatshepsut. The French archaeologist Auguste Mariette discovered fragments of her name in the rubble of her temple. The British archaeologist Howard Carter, who later discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, found her empty sarcophagus in the Valley of the Kings. And the German archaeologist Karl Richard Lepsius was the first to identify her as a female pharaoh. Slowly, the story of Hatshepsut began to emerge from the sands of time. Part 9, The Legacy. Today, Hatshepsut is recognized as one of the most successful pharaohs in Egyptian history. She ruled for more than 20 years, a time of peace, prosperity, and cultural flourishing. She re-established trade networks that had been disrupted for centuries. She built monuments that are still admired for their beauty and innovation. And she proved, once and for all, that a woman could be a king. But her legacy is not just about her achievements. It is about her courage. She was a woman who defied the conventions of her time, who broke the rules, who challenged the assumptions of a patriarchal society. She did not wait for permission. She did not ask for forgiveness. She simply took what she wanted, and she made it work. Hatshepsut's story is also a warning. It reminds us that history is not written by the victors, it is written by the survivors. Thutmose III tried to erase her from the historical record, but he failed. Her name lives on, her monuments still stand, and her legacy endures. Part 10, The Dream. Now, as you drift off to sleep, think about Hatshepsut. Imagine her as a young girl in the royal palace, full of ambition and promise. Imagine her as a regent, biding her time, waiting for the right moment to strike. Imagine her as a pharaoh, wearing the double crown of Egypt, her false beard strapped to her chin, her eyes gleaming with power. Imagine her temple at Deir el-Bahri, rising from the cliffs like a vision of paradise. Imagine the ships returning from Punt, laden with gold and ivory, frankincense and myrrh. Imagine the obelisks at Karnak, towering towards the heavens, their polished surfaces gleaming in the sun. And then imagine the erasure, the chisels, the hammers, the broken statues, the defaced reliefs. Imagine the silence that followed, the forgetting, the long centuries of obscurity. Imagine the archaeologists, brushing the sand from the fragments, piecing together the puzzle, bringing her back to life. Hatshepsut is gone, but she is not forgotten. She lives on in the stories we tell, in the history we study, in the monuments we admire. She is a reminder that even the most powerful men cannot erase a woman who refuses to be forgotten. So tonight, as you lie in your warm bed, in your safe home, surrounded by the people you love, think about Hatshepsut. Think about her courage, her ambition, her brilliance. Think about her struggles, her triumphs, her legacy. And remember that we are all part of the story she began, the story of human ambition, human achievement, and human hope. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. And may your dreams be filled with the sound of the Nile, the sight of golden temples, and the hope of a world that is always being born anew. Good night.